Allow me testify. Ooh, you move mountains. Ha. You move mountains. Thank you. Hi, Tega. Thank you all. Whew, that's a testimony for me. Thank God that we do not look like what we have been through. Past this time yesterday, I was literally gasping for breath. I couldn't breathe, and I was this close to going into hospital. Ooh, but thank God for praying people. Make sure you have praying family around you. Make sure you have people that will lift you up when you're down. Make sure you have people that will think of you when you're not thinking about yourself. Ooh, you know, God's faithfulness that I'm stood here today and I should have been in hospital strapped up to oxygen machines and whatever, or God forbid, something worse. But you know, God is faithful, and the enemy isn't going to take my sound, isn't going to take my breath, because the only reason I'm breathing is to proclaim the goodness of the Lord. Yes, yes. Welcome. Hi, Tega. Hi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I just want to take a moment to publicly, thank God for the things He's doing in private. Our existence is not, we're not silos. We are. And that's the way He's going to work. He's going to work through other people yielding, and we yielding to be used. So I just want to thank everybody that has been praying. I was praying for me throughout yesterday. I thank God that no matter what the enemy had thought was going to happen, didn't happen. Because, whoa, I'm here right now, not looking like anything I've been through. So I thank God and I bless Him. So how have we all been? I trust we are well. We are strong. I mean, wealth is great, but health is best. Who? To not be able to even laugh and feel the pain. So I thank God I'm able to laugh. I'm able to speak like this. Ooh, I thank the Father. So today is going to be awesome, because whatever the enemy was trying to make sure did not happen today was definitely going to happen. Somebody's life is going to be touched. Something is going to shift and change in someone's life, because I am not just existing for myself. I'm completely yielded and a conduit for the Lord to use. So today, this month, we're doing a series. We're listening to the men. We want to hear what they're saying. We want to hear their heart. Today we're going to have somebody talking. Good. Nice to meet you. Good, Tega. I'm glad to hear that. The Lord is gracious and kind. Always. Always. So today I'm going to be talking to a young man who's going to be talking to... he's not representing all men, but it'd be good to get his view on, men and feelings. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The whole of this month is actually focused on men and their health, their wealth, their mind, their faith. Just want to hear what they have to say for a change. I hope it will bless you. Till that happens, I normally come in here and make sure everything is going smooth. I hope you can hear me, Tega. And I'm good and clear. So we're just going to wait. And hopefully I guess we'll be in here soon. I have so much to say. But I have a feeling if I start speaking, I'm going to start welling up. So I will keep it, short, and keep it to assignment and wait for our guests to come in. So talk to me, Tega. You said you're well and making progress. That is fantastic news. That's fine, darling. Thank you for popping in. You can always watch the replay. Thank you so much. I trust you're well too. Making fabulous cakes. Please check out the Cake Ministry. She makes exceptional cakes and they taste fantastic too. Right there, right there. Make a way. So let's listen. Standing here only because you made the way. And you move mountains, and you cause walls to fall with your power. You perform miracles. There's absolutely nothing only because you made a way. You move mountains with your power. You perform miracles. I hope I sound well. I really don't care. I hope it's not offending you guys too much. But that song, this is me, and that is me telling God, thank you for keeping me through these couple of days, and making me look like nothing I've been through. So I'm grateful. So Teka, what else has been happening with you? I know I need to have you on one of these days. And we're standing only because you were here. Only because you. We're going to be talking today about men's feelings. A lot of men don't. It's very hard. I don't think men express themselves enough. Or, I don't know, maybe it's culture. Maybe it's the way we've been raised. And it'd be good to hear, because a lot of men are going through pain because they don't have the opportunity to, or they don't feel they can express themselves and say, this is how I'm feeling. And I don't think it's right. So I don't know. And even men, are they ready to open up? The question. Are they ready to speak? Are they ready to say, this is what's happening to us? I thank God that that's breaking down now, because quite a few men are finally speaking, are finally, coming out with all their different challenges and saying, we're challenged one way or the other. We're identifying that we need to hear what men are going through. I think I saw statistics, I think it was 2018. I think the higher men are twice likely to commit suicide because of depression. And a lot of this is because of things they suppress. They're told to man up. Men don't cry. I think all that needs to be broken down. They are human beings. They have feelings, they have emotions, and they should be allowed to express them. And listen to, not just express them, but do we really take time out to hear and listen to what men are saying? And we don't just have, I guess, something at the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, okay. Does he really feel like that? So today we're going to be talking about men and their feelings. We're going to be talking about depression. We're going to be talking about therapy. Should we go for therapy? Is this something we advise? Is this something that we should encourage? Can you just not talk to your pastor or talk to your close friends? Isn't that enough? Must you speak to some stranger? These are the things we're going to tackle today. Hi. Some people are enjoying themselves in Greece and popping in here right now, making me even miss. How are you doing, Pakadon? I see you're having way too much fun. Yes, I will be talking today about men's health and emotion. So if you've got some questions or something you want to comment about, I that would be really great. Feel free to drop it. I'm here a bit earlier than 6 o'clock. I always come in just to make sure everything is fine. So I'm waiting for my guests to come in. So how are you, Pakadon? Hello? Can you hear me? Or you popped in and just popped right back out? I know I'm not really crazy about this time when you're just having to wait and just talk. And you're talking to nobody. And you have to talk because the replay is going to be look really, really, something else if it's not. What's the topic? Oh, thank you for reminding me. I should have put the topic down. I will do that right now. I can hear you. Okay, good. Hi, Pastor Praise. Thank you for reminding me about the topic. I always forget to do that. Always forget to do that. I try. I do try. Today we're talking about men and their emotions, men and their feelings. That's what we're talking about today. So, yeah. Emotions. I know. Hopefully, we'll hear the different things that they go through. I mean, should men really be allowed to express themselves the same way women do? Or should we tell them to man up all the time? Man up, you're a man. You shouldn't be feeling the way you're feeling. But a lot of men are going through depression, we're finding out. Yay! My guest is here. My guest is here. Let's see if we can get Demi in here. Hello, hi, Ola Christopher. You made it.
Hi.
Hello. I'm thinking, do I want my head? Oh, you've got earphones. I'm going to definitely put that in because it always sounds different. Later on, I'm like, I regret it. But I'm not crazy about AirPods. I really can't deal with it. I just
I
feel like
can't live without my
I feel like it's gonna fall off.
They don't
So
fall out, Even at the gym, they're fine.
I have one, but I just have this thing that it's going to drop off, and I don't know. It's like security blanket. I want to see wires. I want to see colors.
Oh, wow.
How are you? How are you? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm blessed. Highly
Thank
favored. Chocolate
highly
flavors.
favored. Chocolate favored. So
Yeah.
I should be like a little bit chocolate with a drop of caramel going on
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
You would not understand. You would not believe the kind of couple of days I've had. I mean, this is the glory of God you're looking right here. I was
Hey, amen.
literally, this time yesterday, I couldn't breathe.
Oh, wow.
I was this close to calling 111. Well, the 999. I have to.
Wow.
Yes. So this
Ah.
is God and praying family, and just literally, literally. Don't worry. This is testimony. Trust me. Like I was this close to going to to the emergency yesterday. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
like breathlessness,
Mm.
chest tightening, everything.
Mm.
So we thank God. So whatever you're going about to say today must be powerful. It
No
must
pressure.
be. It must be. Do you know what?
No pressure whatsoever.
Breaking. Don't listen to him. Just ignore. You say ignore Pacodon. Yes, we're on. Come in. Come in. Come in. We're live people.
Don't listen to him. Ignore him. You're not interested anyway. I'm gonna deal with that one later. How are you, my darling?
I'm good. I'm doing well.
So
I'm
cool. So
relaxed.
you're relaxed. I think
Yeah.
I saw. I think I saw Shoni. Hey, Shoni. How are you? So introduce yourself.
Okay, cool. My name's Demi, and I am a brand strategist who helps purpose-driven people find clarities in brand strategy. And I'm also a mental health like kind of advocate, as well as a podcaster and overall creative. Yeah, I was invited onto here to talk about emotions,
Emotions and feelings,
feelings,
men
yeah,
and feelings.
feelings. Oh,
Why is it?
feelings,
Why
one of
is it?
those. One of
It's one of those.
those.
It's one of those.
Oh
Why?
gosh.
I know you're not representing all men here, so we're not gonna put that kind of
I
pressure
hope
on
not.
you. No, no, no. But it'd be good to get your perspective on this. Why do you think men don't, or we're told men don't express their emotions or their feelings, or do they really do, and we're just not paying attention?
Um, I think everyone has feelings, but men generally don't practice how to um, use those feelings very much, or to understand those feelings. Um, this is the cliche thing of, big boys don't cry and all that kind of stuff. So the environment in which men are raised in is quite different to the environment women are raised in. We're kind of It's getting better slowly, but a lot of men are raised to be like, saying you're strong. You shouldn't really be showing all these weak emotions and stuff like that. But the only
So
ones
stop
like where,
acting, stop
yeah,
acting like a girl.
stop acting like a girl. But if you're angry, it's not really, you know, it's not really judged as much. Those kind of emotions that are seen as kind of strong emotions, but what they are kind of toxic emotions. And then a lot of us men aren't really pulled up on those kind of things. So we're not really taught how to direct our emotions in a healthy way. Um, whereas even when you grow up, like it's still like emotions. Like what are those? If you ask a guy how are you feeling, you'd be like, I don't know, I'm fine, I guess. But we won't really be able to go into the details to describe that emotion. I know I'm just speaking for myself, I guess, but that's what it is for me. To in order to
So,
describe those emotions can be
so,
quite
so, it,
difficult.
is it nurture? So is it nurture we're gonna blame here? Nurture
Yeah,
is more is who we're
yeah,
gonna blame nurture
that's what I'm
for
going to
the
say. It's the environment. You're a product of your environment. You're a product of your environment. So if you're raised in an environment where you haven't really been allowed to show that kind of emotion, or you haven't really been taught to understand those emotions as much, it can come out very negatively. That's not like one size fits all for everyone. So for some people, being raised in that kind of environment, it can go the other way where they're hyper aware of their emotions, you know. But it depends on the person. But generally, for men, it's
what
different.
would you call a hyper aware of the emotion?
Someone who's not maybe hyper aware was not the right word to use, but someone who's self aware.
Self
Some people
aware.
become self-aware
Self
of
aware.
their emotions because they weren't allowed to show those emotions. So it depends on the makeup of that person. Where some people go down the other end of the spectrum, where they just bottle themselves up and they don't know how to define them.
So emotions, yeah, I've got somebody saying here, define emotions. Emotions is
Mm.
not just crying. Emotions is how do you express yourself?
Hmm.
How do you express yourself full stop? How do you present yourself? How do you control in an environment? How do you articulate
Hmm.
yourself without feeling self-conscious? It's
Hmm.
about identity as well. Would you
Yeah,
agree? It's about
yeah.
having a good, healthy um, sense of your identity. And if you lack that, it's going to
Hmm.
affect the way you respond to people, the way you interact with other people. And that I think men have been men have been nurtured to interact in a more aggressive form. And I think even from when kids are really young and you see that aggressive kind of behavior, when you see it in a little girl, you kind of tell her off. And when we
Mm,
see it in a little boy, we just say, "Oh, stop it,"
mm,
because we're
yeah,
thinking, "Oh, he's a boy." Boys behave like that, and
yeah,
girls don't. So I
yeah.
think we need to break that. So how we really need to do. So what would you say for yourself? How would you? How do you feel? How do you feel about your feelings?
My, you sound like my therapist today. Whoa. He goes, he
We're,
goes, he goes,
we're, we're
how do you,
coming. We're coming to that word you just used right now. So how
whoa.
do you feel about your feelings?
Um,
Feeling,
it's complicated.
and it's fine. And
It's
I think
fine.
it's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, it's
So
fine. It's fine.
okay. So is there a way? But how? But honestly, you have to help us out here.
Yeah,
Women, and this is a cliche thing. Oh,
yeah.
he doesn't talk very much,
Mhm.
or he's a man. He's a doer. So even affects your relationships. So in
Mhm.
relationships, you're going to be like, if and he might just not know how to express it.
Yeah,
Like you said, he's just never learned how to say, this is how I'm feeling, either good or
hmm
bad.
yeah, yeah.
You get
So
him?
a lot of men can't really describe or put into words how they're feeling because they don't know what words to justify, not to the words to do justice of how they're actually feeling. They might say sad, but it's like it's probably more than sad. There's probably some more
Example.
like if someone says, "Oh, like how do you feel about what this person said?" If someone said that to me, for example, um, I'll probably say something that's more surface level than something that's really deep. Like I'll probably
Because,
say that's
yeah.
because it's kind of like I personally don't necessarily know what words to use because I know if I said, "Oh, this made me feel a bit weird," or if this made me feel a bit like that wasn't very nice or whatever, or even if it was positive, like, "Oh, that felt nice."
So,
I
so
wouldn't
is
really
it
be able to
because
go deeper into it, saying,
no?
"Okay, why does that feel nice?"
Is it
necessarily.
because we come back to that? What is masculine traits and what is feminine? Because if I could easily say, oh, I feel a bit overwhelmed, or I
Hmm
feel intimidated. Men don't necessarily say, oh, that kind of made me feel intimidated, or
Not necessarily, yeah. Like a lot of men will probably kind of just like firm it. Like we don't, a lot of guys don't really sweat the small stuff. So, because we don't like,
tell us what is the small stuff.
so like
What is the small
if
stuff?
something just kind of is like maybe a little bit annoying or makes us a little bit, that irks us just a little bit, we probably won't say anything about it because we don't think it's a big deal.
So,
Um,
so okay,
unless something gets really bad.
I give you a scenario. You're going to dinner, which I've done a lot of times, and they bring the meal, and it's not really up to scratch.
Yeah, a guy will be like, whatever. It's not. I'm not gonna die on
Why?
this hill.
So tell me why would he? But he's paying for that meal, and
I
deep down
know.
he's probably not happy about what he's eating. So is this a matter of I don't want to seem like I'm making a fuss?
um, See, this is an example of not being able to describe it because it's like we just don't feel like it's just like it's fine. Like we're
Okay,
not.
so
It's
so
just
you said you talked about therapy. Let's go there. Let's go there. Because you started it up early. I was waiting to warm up into it, and you started it off. So we might as well go there.
sure,
Is it something you would recommend?
especially if you're black, yes,
Who? Why?
because I'm gonna use a very big brush to paint everyone. If this doesn't
Okay.
apply to you, don't cry to me. Yeah.
We're sorry. We're sorry.
Okay.
We
I apologize in advance.
we apologize in advance.
I can only say from like my culture because I'm brought up in the Black African culture. My family's great and everything. In case they're watching, in case they're watching.
I think there's one
Um,
person. One person is on
but
here.
you know, in like I grew up in Nigeria. I went to a Nigerian school and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that where even from the day to day, the stuff that we deal with as well when we have to go leave our front doors and we worried about how people would treat us and all that kind of stuff. We have racism to deal with and all that, all this kind of stuff. That alone, racism alone, is enough to go to therapy for, But like, in our community, we're only just getting onto gain understanding therapy a bit more, because whenever we look at, I know, like, whenever someone hears therapy, they'll be like, "Oh, why? Why do you need to? Why would you go to therapy? You have friends, you have family. Why would you need to go to therapy? You can talk to your friends or family."
You have
But it's
pastor,
like
you have your
they think
pastor,
that
you have
you
your
have your
whatever.
pastor, um, but they're not exactly qualified to know what the deeper reasoning for what you think, just like the way you think is, and they're not necessarily going to call out certain things. And I know from my experience, like therapy has helped me be a lot more self-aware, and has helped me understand not only understand what my triggers are, but I've gone away with tools to help me manage my emotions better and to live a more healthy, mentally healthy lifestyle. Quite a lot of us, and there's also other reasons why we don't get into therapy, because it's actually quite expensive as well. For a lot of us can't afford therapy, you know. But if you can afford it, I would definitely
Because
give it an all.
for us in a particular community, and it's not just the Black community.
It's
I
not just the
think
Black community, yeah.
not just the Black community, but there are quite a few communities that understand mental health to mean, are you mad?
Yeah, they think the person's mad or they're possessed
Mental health it just goes to an extreme. So the
yeah.
concept that you have somebody that has particular quirks throughout their lifetime, you can see this person then grows up into a mature adult, and still those quirks now become ridiculous because now they're older, and nobody is like, everybody in the family can see it, and everybody does not just address it. It's just called, that's just how it is.
That's just how it is, and we get into
And
disagreements. Like I've had like some disagreements with some older generation, talking about the stuff that happens in our childhood that affects us in our adulthood. Everyone has an inner child. So that inner child comes out when you have certain triggers. So if something happens to someone and they're angry and their whole thing is to blow up and to make a big scene, that's their inner child. Or if it's someone that just clams up, that's their inner child, So the trauma manifests in different ways because we all have inner children. And if you're not aware of that, you're just going to be thinking that that's just how I am, and you're not going to do anything about it. But it's not a very healthy way to live.
so how would you raise your son?
How would I raise my son?
Yes.
I'll raise my son to be self-aware.
I need
Self-aware.
self-aware.
Like, for example, I would ask him, make him more aware of how he feels about stuff and be able to describe how he feels about something, rather than, yes, there's room for punishment, but also you need to understand the emotions you are feeling as to why my son might act a certain way. He needs to be able to describe how he feels from a younger age, so that when he's older, it's you practice. When you practice from a younger age, it gets easier. You see what I mean? But a lot of us, we're not practicing it until we're in our 30s or whatever it is, and then we find it difficult.
People will see that and go, so does that mean every time a child does something, you're going to ask them, so how do you feel about that? So
probably.
And you think,
but he also needs to be aware of how other people feel, because empathy, that's where empathy comes in, because you need to be able to tell the child, this is how this person felt. You see what I mean? You need to create the environment where you can actually talk about emotions in a healthy way. It needs to be a safe space for children to communicate how they're feeling about things, and to be able to put themselves in the other shoes of other people, other children, or other people that they interact with, and be like, I'm trying to,
So isn't that just good old manners? Good old being, courteous, respectful,
yeah,
gracious, and being kind. So are we saying that we're not teaching our children to be kind?
it's not that we're not, but we also need to teach them why. So you don't. It's enough saying. It's one thing saying, "Oh, you do this just because it's a good thing to do." Why is it a good thing to do? Why is this a bad thing to do? Why? If you can understand the reasoning for something, then it's kind of it makes things a lot better rather than just doing it just because mom and dad said so.
So do you believe your generation are talking more?
Yeah,
The guys are talking more. Guys
yeah,
expressing themselves more.
yeah,
And
yeah.
how what's the kind of response you're getting from the women in your environment, in your generation?
Um, they're already quite receptive, because they practice it a lot more. So whenever a guy um opens up about certain things, they get a lot of support, from women and from other guys as well, to be honest. It's not an easy thing to
I
do.
watched the clip. I don't know whether you watched that movie, and somebody put it out on one of the posts, and they threw out the question there, and I thought, I think it was Kevin Hart, where
Mm.
he's a father of a young girl.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched that,
Yeah, I
and
watched that, yeah.
the whole trauma about losing his wife
Hmm.
and then having to raise this girl by himself. And I think she had an incident. The child had an incident, so she went to the hospital and he couldn't reach her. So this young lady that he was just started to date, um, I think he was expressing the anxiety and the
Hmm.
fear that he couldn't reach his daughter. She was put in hospital. She was now in hospital, the same hospital where his wife died.
Yeah.
And when he came home, and he was expressing this to her,
Yeah.
and the next thing she did was say, "Okay," after he's expressed himself, and her response was, "Okay, I think I better leave." Now,
Hmm.
I thought for myself, come on, if that was the other way around, he would have, but you would have expected the man to address her, at least comfort her physically in one way or the other.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of people had so many different things. Other people were like, "Oh, he was threatening the way he reacted." I don't know. Did you watch that? Do
I
you
watched it, yeah, I watched it, yeah.
what's your, because some people came up like, "Oh, the way he was speaking, he was threatening, he made her uncomfortable, and she had to
No,
leave
well,
because she didn't know whether he was going to." And I'm thinking, but when a woman does that, and if it was the other way around, and the woman
mm,
expressed her fears and anxiety about anything that an accident could have happened to, and the guy said, "You know what? Later,
yeah,
talk to you." Everybody
yeah,
would be at him.
yeah, yeah. I think uh there's different rules. It seems like there's different rules, and I do understand. Like when I saw that scene, I was like, okay, I understand why she would want to leave in that situation because her being there is not really improving it. But I also understand the way he reacted because it's the sort of thing where his trauma had still not been
Dealt with, yeah.
dealt with. So that was like we talk about the inner child again. That was his response. That was to a trigger. Um, so I don't blame him for the way he responded either. Someone that I think with a lot of the situations you have to kind of read it and be like, okay, right now, will what is the best thing to do in regards to kind of the situation? Some people would have been able to stay, but not everyone can do that.
I don't think she should have stayed.
Yeah.
I think her first response should not have been, "I have to leave."
Mm, yeah.
Do you understand? And I just felt, for me, that was just double standard.
Yeah,
You
I can
know,
see why. I can see why. Because
I
if
thought
it's
that was double standard. And
mm,
especially when the people were commenting, everybody was like, "Oh, he was aggressive. She
yeah.
protect herself. She needed." I'm thinking, he's crying out here
Yeah, yeah.
in pain. So I really I really do feel for guys, that
Mm,
there's this environment, and I hope that we're having more people speak out,
mm,
and more men speak and say, "This is how I feel. This is what's happening to me." I do know then there's some that will now take it to an extreme. But you know what? There's extremes in everything. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the sensible people in the middle. You know, let's just, you know, the more reasonable ones in the middle. Let's address them. But what I wanted to ask, identity. What do
Mhm.
you think is the foundation? I would say a lot of this comes down to, and like we've said, I think we've already touched on it, being that the environment you grow in. But like you said, you come from a family that was, you know, you didn't have
Mm.
those um kind of upbringing, you know, I would say,
Mhm.
but it still affected you.
Mhm.
So so within so what else can we attribute that to? So even if you
Yeah.
then come home from a home where you're nurtured and given the tools and you're raised, what then?
Mm. Everyone's story is different. Even if you came from a healthy household, it's still not a perfect household.
Yeah, definitely.
And there
It,
are
it helps.
things,
Yeah.
people make mistakes, parents make mistakes, siblings make mistakes, people make mistakes, but it's being able to kind of address those mistakes without it coming off like you're betraying your loved ones. Um, and it's just something it's about understanding how that affects you today, you know, whether it's a good thing or a negative thing, being able to understand how that affected you today and just having that kind of understanding gives you more power
Hmm.
in terms of being able to either look out for triggers or to just understand yourself as a person.
I've got a question here. I didn't see that, but sometimes it helps to give the person space, reveal that the person is calm. Oh no, no, definitely. I agree. I definitely you need to give the person space when somebody's expressing themselves. But my point was when somebody's expressing themselves and you can see that they are in pain, I think too, you need to learn to acknowledge, let the other person know, I feel you, I see your pain, but right now I need to give you some time
Mm,
to deal with this and I'm there for you. Not feel like this is a bit much, this is,
yeah,
um, and that's what I didn't like particularly about that scene
yeah,
and when people's response to it, because I just feel the double standards for women. For women, we expect and we ask for these things, and they're right
yeah.
and they're good. I'm just on the side of what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If you want to be listened to, you want to be able to express yourself,
Mm,
let the men do the same.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So having
let
that
them be
safe
able,
space.
let them have
Um,
let them have that. You
mm,
know, but I mean, what would you say? Because we now said, okay, so identity. For
mm,
me, knowing who you are, getting that self-worth is a fantastic foundation because, like you said, we're going to respond to different things. Even people that come from the same household, perspective is going to be different. The way, like you say,
mm,
things affect one will not affect the other.
yeah.
So for me, my reason would be your self worth. I'm all about identity, knowing yourself, and um, and definitely, and I'm gonna bring in that aspect of it. What about your faith? How was your faith work? How
Hmm.
has that helped in in this?
Yeah. My faith has helped me in terms of it's giving me the tools that I need in order to kind of maintain mentally healthier lifestyle. But there's the other side of it, where has actually been a very interesting um, barrier um, to my what do you call it? To
Your journey,
my journey.
your
Yeah,
development.
yeah. So basically, I was having therapy because I was going through some anxiety. And one of
Sorry,
these things,
sorry to cut you, but we do have Christian therapists as well.
yeah, we do have Christian therapists. Yeah,
Yeah.
Christian therapists are great, you know. Um, but I think it's not always. Sometimes I'll get onto my story, but sometimes we're always looking for the right kind of therapist, and that's good.
It's
but
very
we have a
important.
list. We have a list that like they must be black, they must be Christian, they must be this and that. But sometimes that kind of hinders the process of actually getting a therapist. Um, a good therapist not will will consider the fact that you have faith and stuff like minded. Um, and it's not necessarily it's not you going against your faith to get a therapist. Even the therapist, if the therapist is not a Christian, like that's okay, you know.
I
It's
think
it's it's it's
it's that
nice,
under,
but
it's that understanding of, okay, especially as a Christian, and you have the, you're saved and you should have joy, you should have peace,
yeah,
and those things are great, and you will find them in Christ. But then again, we forget that we're first the spirit,
hmm
and when we do get saved, what regenerates is your spirit. You still then have to deal with the mind and the body.
yeah, yeah.
So
And the Bible talks a lot about that kind of stuff where people have been depressed. And there's a book called Anxious for Nothing, and it's written by a Christian, and he talks about the Christian approach to anxiety. You know, that was I got the audiobook, but it's a very good book, and there's quite a few books on that. And one of the things for me personally, you know how you say, when you speak, you shouldn't speak things certainly because, there's power in the tongue, etc., etc., etc. So I grew up hearing that over and over again. So when I was going through the process with my therapist, there's a thing where you have, where they do for patients with OCD, where you're imagining certain scenarios. So you're imagining worst case scenarios. And for example, it could be like, oh, I don't want to go on this plane because the plane might blow up in the sky. Like it sounds crazy, but
like
we're thinking about
true.
these crazy, extreme, catastrophizing scenarios. So one of the activities was a thing of, okay, think about your worst case scenario, write it down on a piece of paper, and my therapist said, I want you to say this to yourself a few times a day in the mirror. And I was just like, how can I say this? I had to
you're,
read it out to
you're,
myself
you're,
as if it's
you're, you're,
happening.
call, you're calling it to yourself and thinking,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
why should I be
yeah, yeah. So it went counter to what I've been taught in my
your faith?
faith. And my therapist, I don't even know if he was a Christian or not, but he said, look, he goes, you are a Christian, right? I was like, yes. And he goes, and this whole thing about power of the tongue and stuff like that. But remember, you saying something doesn't mean you want it to happen. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. So I did. And behold,
What, so, so,
it, it,
so what did that do for you?
it made me realize that just because I say something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. And the process of that was to basically, in what the words of my therapist said, is getting your brain to get bored. Because what happens is with your brain, imagine your brain is full of like snow, and all the memories that you have are like pulled along on a snowmobile. It's leaving the tracks behind. So all those tracks that are left behind are what your brain is focusing on. But what this thing does is that it gets you to say it so many times that it just becomes your brain just doesn't respond to it anymore. So like
But
you might think,
isn't that back to a Christian listening and your belief as well? When the
hmm,
Bible tells us um to look on the things that are good, concentrate on the
yeah,
things that are good, that are true. So
yeah,
isn't that more or less the same thing? Because for me, I feel like as a Christian, a lot of the words, a lot of the scriptures messages that we do here is really a lot of the things used in therapy,
yeah. There's a lot
especially
of things alignment there.
like with
You know,
therapy. So
yeah.
so wouldn't you say, would you have thought that maybe did you need to, another option would be, if you had built your faith a lot more stronger, would that have helped you more?
Um, and if I was personally, if I was deeper into my faith, I think it would have been more difficult to do that activity. But in my nature, I'm already quite other Christians look at me like I'm like rebellious or something because I'm the way I am. Because I ask a lot of questions anyway.
No, but you're supposed to
Uh,
ask questions. Even the
but you're
Bible tells us
supposed to.
to ask
You're
questions.
supposed to.
Bible tells
So,
us to ask questions.
so
Don't put
something
pressure
as
on you.
long, something like as what people would think is fundamental about, the word of faith and like speaking things into existence. That's one of the things
I don't.
I would personally question anyway.
There's a
So
lot. There's a lot to that. It's
yeah,
not as simple as people
yeah,
state it. So even if we
yeah,
go into that right now, that's on
yeah,
a whole nother.
exactly.
That's a
But
whole nother
to
show
other people, they would have
altogether.
looked at me and thought, "Oh my gosh, how can you do that? That kind of
That's
process,
because
you know."
that's because they haven't themselves, and a lot of and this is something I would say even as Christians, we're not supposed to take our brain and bin it.
You're not. You're
You know,
not.
God gave us this fantastic brain, the intricacies of it, and He's is yielding to Him as well. That helps us use it to its optimum.
Mm,
And I really believe that when we come to things about emotions and personalities, I think we need to one be honest with ourselves.
mm,
And I think that's your first step of healing on anything is being honest with yourself. And if
mhm.
yourself is a lying, insecure, whatever, first of all, accept that, you know what, I'm a lying, insecure, whatever. Let's start from there
Yeah,
and then get better.
yeah.
But
That's
if you,
self-awareness.
sorry,
It's about again about self-awareness
it's
at the end of the day.
and if we have that, then we know that that's our first point. You can then say, this is who I am. I'm not saying it's completely right, but this is what I've got to work with. This, and everybody else around you, and you knowing as well, and that gives you empathy that because this is all I have to work with. So that means whatever that person is dealing with, that's all they've got to work with.
Hmm.
So that's our starting point. Let's just be able to give each other, a little bit of slack. But for me, really, you really touched on it. Men, so let's talk about this. Men, we're talking about men and emotions here. If anybody's just coming in, we're just talking about men and their feelings. I like the way you said it, feelings. I said emotions, but it's like feelings. Feelings, I think, is better because we don't normally that's not a word we associate with men. Men and feelings. It just didn't. Even when I did that, I was like, I didn't think of feelings until he said feelings. I was like, yeah, it is
Yeah.
feelings. I mean, I've grown up with brothers, and I have lots of male friends, and I've seen that just like women, people's personalities are different, and even
Yeah.
people that you grow up from the same household together, perspectives are different because even if you grow up in the same household, they are interacting with other people that could influence their perspective.
Mm,
So for me, the first thing is just be kind. I think kindness for me
hmm.
is the is the is the is the overriding factor. If we're kind to one another, you would simply want the same thing I want for myself, I should want for
Mm,
you. And
yeah.
that shouldn't be that shouldn't be a big conversation.
Mm. But to a lot of people, it is because they're not kind to others because they're not kind to themselves first. But you need to know when they say treat others as you'd like to be treated, but you don't treat yourself well, how
Then
are you going to
then
treat others
with
well?
other people.
You're
Okay.
not. You're not going to know.
So what we've learned today is let's start from the home. Let's
Hmm.
start let's start being self-aware.
Hmm.
Start letting the young men understand that they can express their emotions, feelings, giving them the tools. But you still haven't given us. I want to know what kind of tools would I? Okay, I have. My godson, as your namesake. What kind of tools am I going to give him right now in learning how to express himself?
I ain't got a kid, so I don't know what the tools are.
Okay,
But
but
it's it's
what are the tools you? What were the tools you're going to express if you had some friends? You have
mhm,
other male friends, and you're talking to them, and you
mhm,
want, but because you said your mental health advocate.
mhm.
So how would you communicate this? How would you
To them.
share? Yes.
I would let them know that, you can, this is a judgment-free zone. So whatever you say, A, it doesn't leave this conversation, and B, you're allowed to feel how you feel. However you feel, and however you choose to describe it is not wrong. Because how you feel is how you feel. And I can empathize, and I empathize with you for that. So it's about creating that environment. I can't necessarily resolve their problems or whatever it is, but give them the space to describe how they're feeling. And sometimes when they describe how they're feeling, sometimes the person that's listening might have a word, that they can give them that they're like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. Because I know sometimes like I talk when I say stuff like that, and someone else says, "Oh, they give a word like they're probably more read than I am. They probably read the dictionary much more than I do. So they have the words to describe it, and I'm like, that's the word. That's it.
That's the one.
That's what I'm saying.
But you have the space where you can actually unpack
Yeah,
the
you can
feelings,
unpack it. Yeah,
unpack the emotion. So that's
yeah.
what we go. So going forward, you would say create a
Mm.
space where men can actually unpack and express their feelings.
How they're feeling, and also it's like sometimes the danger, like, or the up till now, when men are expressing themselves, people are looking at how they're expressing themselves and not what they're saying. So like saying, "Oh, I feel threatened," or "I feel, like you're too aggressive," or "I just, you can't raise your voice, you can't do this," and it's like you're not listening to the person. You're really not listening to the person. Well, how's the person supposed to feel safe? I know you're also supposed to feel safe about, the person, like if there's other people around and stuff like that, that's a good thing. But like,
Just trying to
if the
get that
person
right
is
balance.
trying to get that balance, I know I have friends that, their way of expressing themselves, they get louder, but I'm not threatened by that because I know how they are, that they're not attacking me. It doesn't mean that they're attacking me. You see what I mean? Or some people, they just don't speak. So everyone has a way of, like different ways of expressing themselves, but it's actually listening to what they are saying. That's the key, and not basically saying, "Oh, can you just be a bit quieter?"
Mm.
Because you don't want to silence them. That's not the right idea. You know.
I don't know. 1 minute you sound like there's hope. The next minute I feel like there's no hope. So do you think there's any kind of hope?
Yeah, as long as there's empathy, there's hope. And when there's no empathy, then that's hope goes out the window. If you don't genuinely care about that person, if you don't genuinely like want to give that person the space, you know, then that you shouldn't be the person that anyone talks to. But as long as you have empathy, and as long as you're not there to judge the person, then there is hope. If the person feels judged, then they're not going to feel safe
Hmm.
at all. And it's about feeling safe again for men. Men have not felt safe to
No, they've not felt
they have
safe to.
they haven't felt safe because like men are really there's a microscope on a lot of men at the moment, and if a man says something, um, it can really go the wrong way. So men have not had the safe space to actually, and whether you agree with what they say or whatever, just being able to have that conversation with them. you know. But a lot of men, they just like, I'd rather just not say anything because it's going to open up a can of worms because
So culture.
no one wants to talk.
Let's go back to culture. What would your advice to the the community where you come from or where we
Mm.
come from? What would be your advice to that community regarding listening and talking to men about their
Um,
emotions?
Listen to learn, not listen to respond. Um, a lot of us are listening in order to respond. While the person is talking, we're already thinking of a rebuttal, but you don't even have to have a response. It's not by force.
But what you're in an environment where they're like a strong man, pick up those things and man up and
Yeah, that's
just
just very toxic. That's toxic. Because if you go to a woman, you're not being a woman. Oh my God. So why would you go to a man and say you're not being a man? especially if you don't know, you haven't lived a day being a man. You have no clue what it's like to be a man. The same way a man doesn't know what it's like to be a woman. You have not lived a day being a woman. So you can't go to a woman and say this is what a woman should do. So
More
it's
understanding, more
yeah,
understanding with one another, more kindness with one another, a lot more
yeah,
empathy with one another.
yeah.
Listen to you. How did you say it? Listen to learn,
Listen to learn, not to respond.
not to respond. And so that's definitely one. So there's kind of some hope. There's some kind of
Yeah.
hope. So
Mm-hmm.
what about things? So because we do, like I was saying earlier before you came in, I think it was the 2018 um
Mm-hmm.
what whatever, and it said men were twice as it's men twice was suffering from depression and then
Mm-hmm.
suicide. So we don't we that's definitely something that needs to, because that's the extreme. That's what it ends up. We have things like, men committing suicide because they can't face their family because something has happened and they were supposed to be the man and they were supposed to act a particular way. But this is where I think men need to be trained in being men. Men need to be trained in being men. Men need to be
Mm-hmm.
allowed, just like women, but because we're talking about men today, let's just stick it that way. And I think men need to be raised and told that this is what a man is. This is why you were made. This is what your construct is. Um, and this is what is expected of you. And what's expected of you, their responsibilities. But then there's an opportunity for you to say you're allowed to, you're free to express and say, this is how I feel, because you know yourself. I think it goes back down to that whole identity thing. For
Mm-hmm.
me, is a lack of a lack of a proper healthy identity can be quite confusing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
So
but
so
there's also the kind of thing where it can also go the other way, where it's like you're taught this is the identity of what a man is. But in some ways, that could be a thing of, but this doesn't really. Why is why is this what a man is? Like, and that's where culture comes in, because just like a man, for example, a lot of people like we go back to children again, and I'm gonna raise all my kids, whether they're a girl or a boy. You're gonna learn to cook and clean up after yourself and all that kind of stuff, because
for
that kind of
them,
thing doesn't define whether you're a man or a woman. It's just
absolutely,
basic
it's just
like
basic
survival skills.
survival skills.
Um, you know, but for some cultures, they'll be like, okay, what's a man doing in the kitchen? What are you doing in
Hmm.
the kitchen? Why is the woman sitting with the men? So with some people, that kind of identity, it's like, oh, your identity, but I think identity is different for everybody. That sounds very controversial. That sounds very controversial. But
You're
like,
digging up some
I'm
stuff
digging,
here right
yeah,
now.
I'm digging up
It's
some.
like it's
I'm
like
really,
it's
but
like
that's what it is. Oh,
you,
that's what it
why are you
is.
gonna go? Okay, I'm gonna allow you
Everyone
go there.
is,
Go there a little bit. Go
everyone's,
there a little
everyone,
bit.
everyone's fingerprint is different. There's no one fingerprint in this world that's the same.
Absolutely.
Nobody is built the same. You're not the same person you were yesterday, because your
I
cells
am.
are constantly changing. So you cannot take the same brush and paint everyone with it, because everybody is different.
So
Everybody's different.
how are we gonna do this? With this, everybody's different and everybody's expressing themselves and everybody's. It's like, where's the order? I need some sort of order. I need order. This is a bit too. It's just too.
It's deep, but that's the reality of the world we live in. I think that's the first stage. It's just acknowledging that. It's really just acknowledging that. That's
Somebody from from the older generation will go and say, "You guys have way too much time on your hands. You just get on with life
and
and
that
just."
is why they might have said that to a younger generation, and that person is probably more self-aware than the older generation, because they've asked those questions and they haven't just thought, hey, this is how it is.
Ask questions, allow for
Yeah.
safe space to speak, and you're telling me that there's
So
hope. So I
there's
want to
there's
make
hope.
I want to make sure I'm leaving this conversation knowing that there is hope for men to express
There is hope
themselves.
for men. Look, there is hope for men, as long as we're and that more and more. people are creating the safe spaces for men to be themselves and to say things without judgment. It's not enough yet, but it's getting better. It's definitely getting better as people are more vocal about that kind of thing. So
And therapy, I wanted to quickly touch on therapy before we round up. Therapy is not just going to therapy because you think there's a problem. Therapy is just going to be self-aware.
yeah, if there's something that you want to learn, or if there's any skills, tools that you need, or if you just want to understand yourself better, therapy is actually a good place to go. And sometimes you might find out that there are certain things about you that are like, oh, I didn't even know that, you know. Oh my gosh. Wow, I'd like to learn more about that. Because a lot of the time they'll talk to you about your childhood and like, you know, all that kind of stuff. I went I went to a consultation once and then I spoke to the therapist and stuff. And you know in Nigeria, yeah, you know, being kids, yeah, is normal. Yeah.
Smack, we smack.
Okay.
Smack. We don't
Smack.
we,
No. We beat. I'm not gonna worry that, bro.
smack.
Smack. Okay, smack.
Yes.
Smack. Okay.
No, but we don't smack out of anger.
I wish I got smacked in school, you know. I wish it was smacked that I got.
Oh, no, let's not talk about
Anyway.
school. School was a
But
beating.
anyway,
I agree. I agree.
So yeah,
what did you say?
So the therapist, I will tell the therapist about, and then black people, yeah, what we do, we like to laugh about things that are serious. So when we laugh about getting beat as kids, we start laughing. So when I told the therapist about it, I was laughing. My therapist did not laugh. He just looked at me like. I was like, so when I got home, I went to my brother. I was just like, we need therapy. We're messed up.
Are we do we not have a level? But I'm thinking if you put too much light on a particular thing, is that not what it's gonna?
It's a coping mechanism. I think we have a coping mechanism that we just laugh about things that are serious. We all laugh about it. All this trauma, we just laugh.
What are we gonna do? We all. I agree. I'm like. I remember one time I was in primary school and I think I got smacked in school and they smacked behind my back of my leg, but behind my back of my leg. And my dad was in there the next day, was like, what is this? I did not send my child to school for her to come home to it having marks on her legs. And he, he went for them.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't think, hopefully, there are things we definitely need to address.
Do you know what they used to do in school? My PE teacher, if you forgot your PE kit or if you did something wrong, he'll pick you up by the ears and raise you up and then drop you.
What school was that? Don't say this. Don't say this.
But some people think that's normal. Some people think, oh, what I've done wrong is bad enough for me to be picked up by the ears. And they will laugh about it when we're older, innit? But therapists are not laughing. They're not laughing.
So we just need to deal with stuff. We need to deal with stuff and we need to be able to speak. So all that tough men business needs to be addressed.
Yes, it does. It does.
So I want you to finish up with me with a real roundup of, so you say you recommend therapy.
Yeah.
Definitely go speak to somebody. Not even when something is bad, even just if you feel you just want to have that, do that. Because safe spaces, friends, create that. So men should do that more. More men should gather together and start creating that. I really think. Have you had? Is there anything coming from you anytime soon before round up? We'd like to let anybody know regarding the mental health advocacy.
Nothing specific, but I do talk about this kind of stuff on my podcast a lot.
What's the name of your podcast?
It's called The Unstuck Podcast, and it's on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. And every now and then I will talk about something to do with mental health or self-awareness and all that kind of stuff. So I do not have any like events or anything planned, but you can find quite a lot of information of that on my podcast.
So is it something that you're looking forward to doing more of?
Yeah, I'm always open to having this conversation
And
with
you're getting good feedback from people. So people not annoyed and say, "Oh, Demi's coming," and when Demi comes now, he's gonna start talking again about what
if they like, they can get annoyed. It's not my business.
and then they
They
go,
can get
"No,
annoyed
but
because
what? Good.
huh?
No, because I just want to know what the feedback is for you. What since you've been
It's
talking about
positive. It's been positive. It's been
positive,
positive. Yeah.
and is
If they
it
get
good?
annoyed, I'll be like, you need a therapist because they shouldn't be getting annoyed about this thing. You need to go talk to someone. You need help.
So you think that that's been very good for your life as well? For you, it's definitely improved your health, your life, your
Yeah.
lifestyle, your well-being.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Demilade. I really do
No
appreciate
problem.
it. Although you've left me with one or two things that I'm going to have tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm going to sit down thinking, yeah, that thing. I'm gonna have to think hard. But I do agree with you, and I am glad that men, especially of your generation now, are taking the step of talking,
Mm.
taking charge of it. But just before I go, just to throw in something there too. You then have a generation that don't you think that's overly thinking about how they are feeling and just not getting on with stuff?
Yes, yeah. There's too much of everything is not always a good thing. So if yes, you can be aware, but when it comes to that, you're so aware of this stuff that it actually cripples you, then that's you need to address that too because it doesn't things are going to happen in life.
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to manage yourself when these curveballs get thrown your way. You know. So
But we do expect. Well, I don't know. Call me old-fashioned, but it's still nice to know that the male of the species are there and have got a bit more girth with them, a little bit more.
mhm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as such.
If it's not toxic,
Yes, if
then
it's of course,
then
yeah,
great. When it gets toxic, that's what it can be toxic without people realizing it.
like it's toxic.
Yeah, just imposing these things on people when it's just like
Thank you
yeah,
so much, Demi. I
you're
really do
very welcome.
appreciate this. Thank you for leaving me with stuff as well that I'm going to go think about. And phew, okay, that identity one. That identity one is the one that I'm gonna go. You left me with that one. So that's definitely
It's
the one I'm gonna go.
provocative.
It is terribly provocative. Terribly. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for
It's a
stopping
pleasure
by.
coming on. Thanks for
Um,
having me.
Definitely. It was for me, I just have a passion for the men, and I just feel like, you know what? We don't well, guys need to be given a little bit of a break. Give them a bit of a break. Um,
Yeah.
it's not one or the other. It's just give the guys a bit of a break. So,
Mm.
guys, if you're listening, allow them speak, allow them express themselves. Listen not to respond. Listen to understand. Ask
Yeah.
questions. Create this um, safe space,
Mm.
and we just hope it'll get better. Yeah,
Yeah.
Michael, you're just coming in as we're leaving. Go watch the replay. Thank you so much, Debbie. Really appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.